Welcome. I'd like to talk with you today about the role ethics, values and principles play in maintaining a benign and healthy society. I, perhaps like you, would like the world to be a better place, and I believe it can be if sufficient numbers of us want it enough and do something about it. In very simplistic terms, how to achieve it, I believe, is relatively straightforward. Of course, not necessarily easy to achieve. Obviously, we need our physical environment to be healthy, but the same goes for what I will loosely call our psychological environment. Like all good things, it has to come from a solid foundation. As I've mentioned before, that has to be first and foremost in how we educate our children, for in time that directly seeds and propagates what our society looks like. And we know the truth of the adage, as you sow, so shall you reap. If you want a heart-based, loving, caring and benign society, then you have to give the members of the tribe the ingredients they need to voluntarily and naturally behave and think in ways where that'll be the case. If you want a society where there is much less violence, conflict and war, one of the things you're going to need to do is give people the psychological and verbal awareness of what creates conflict and violence, also how to avoid it, and create relational connection with others who do not necessarily see things the way we do. We are a species that has not and does not sufficiently understand certain key aspects of our psychology and verbal communication and how they drive our reactions and responses to each other. And in my experience, I would say it is this lack of awareness of these parts of ourselves and how they play out that is the largest contributor to the world we have right now. Change our awareness of parts of our psychology and verbal communication, and the world will change. As I've mentioned in previous videos, to achieve this, the mainstream educational syllabus at school has to be much broader and holistic in preparing us all for life. Intrinsically, it needs, amongst other things, to be more psychological in its approach, and include making sure we understand our emotions, our need for connection with each other, what we mean by our words, which is the field of linguistics, and the importance of ethics and how to resolve disputes. Then we will gradually start having a different world once that feeds through into society. What I would say we have right now is a syllabus that focuses more on preparing us to make money than it does happy and psychologically healthy human beings. That has to change. And if what I'm saying makes sense to you, please share the idea of a much more holistic education for our children with others. So, what else can each and every one of us be doing right now in creating the Better World project? Well, an additional place to education that seems obvious to me to focus on is our ethics, values and principles. These virtues play a vital role in contributing to a psychologically healthy and benign society and our collective well-being as a species, and that indeed of the planet. They guide us along and directly illuminate our path through life, both to our individual and our mutual collective benefit. In their presence, we are all nourished, and they reflect and resonate with the core inner part of us. Whether you call that part our soul or not, the point is that they matter enormously as they directly contribute and play an important role in maintaining the meaning and quality of life. While vital that all of us demonstrate they matter, it is most crucial that for a society to be healthy, its main institutions have to consistently model and preferably exemplify them. Well, good luck with that currently. Government and politicians, medicine and science, education, the banking and corporate world and mainstream media. We and they have a mutual relationship. In essence, you could say that we are a family. One of the ways that's crucial for its healthy functioning is that we need to be able to trust them, to model, reflect, and uphold the basic core ethics, values, and principles, of which the most frequently named major ones include freedom of speech, freedom of movement, in medical situations, the right to informed consent as to understanding the properties and ramifications of taking a medical product or undergoing a procedure. Fourthly, in addition, the right to decide for ourselves what we put into our bodies. However, there are many more equally important ones that include care, consideration and respect towards others, honesty, self-accountability, and an overall attitude of beneficence, but to name a few. To reflect their commitment to ethics and values, it's important for institutions not only to demonstrate them by their actions, but also to directly talk about and name to the public that they prioritize them. This helps to reassure us that sacred principles matter to them. It also increases a very necessary ingredient in our relationship with them, our trust. And trust is a vital component of any relationship and needs to be consistently nurtured and maintained. Unfortunately, we live in a society where my experience is, I don't know about yours, is that most of our mainstream institutions have a somewhat, how shall I call it, tenuous grasp with displaying their ethics. When it suits them, they mention them, but then will avoid acknowledging and taking responsibility when it's important to do so, or they are not following them. So, for example, in the pandemic from late 2020 till it was enacted briefly in early September 2021, the Vaccines Minister, Nadeem Zahawi, was regularly asked if the government planned to bring in vaccine passports. He unequivocally denied it, indicating in his answers that ethically it was not considered appropriate in this country. So there, actually, amazingly, there was a rare reference to ethics. But thereafter, that was pretty much the end of it. My memory is that he still was denying they'd bring passports in just 2 days before he did a sudden, complete about turn on September the 8th, 2021, and announced in Parliament that the government were going to require a vaccine passport to visit certain venues like clubs. He gave a few practical reasons for it, but did little or nothing to directly acknowledge or even perhaps apologise for the effect on people who had trusted him and the government at their word that they would not do so. Almost certainly he did that to avoid the discomfort of having to acknowledge it. As a result, many people who were counting on his and the government's word would have felt emotionally and relationally very let down. Yet I am not aware that he ever directly acknowledged or apologised that he was going back on his word and understood its impact for some people. Well, you might say, well, that goes on all the time. We know what politics and politicians are alike. And anyway, in the scheme of things, does it really matter? Yes, it matters a lot. Because whether or not people get used to it, it's not okay if you want a benign world, because care and consideration are very much part of what creates a better world, including keeping to your word. See how you'd get on with treating your own family like that when you had given your word. You might have a bit more explaining to do than essentially saying, oh, the situation has changed. Politicians and institutions do not have a get-out-of-jail-free card from demonstrating ethical behaviour just because, for example, they are maintaining the functioning of society, dealing with an emergency, or focused on making money. As I said earlier, we are in a relationship together, and if we want a better world, everybody has to participate in contributing to and maintaining it. I know the example I've chosen may seem relatively unimportant, something perhaps that the majority of people would barely notice. But actually, the smaller or less dramatic examples of the transgression of ethics by institutions or their stakeholders are, in a way, the most important, because they dig away at the foundation and sturdy structure of a healthy society and create complacence and a sense of normalization when they do it. Look after the pennies and the pounds will look after themselves. In other words, a society that does operate ethically in the smaller ways is a society that would be most likely to step up to the plate and respond ethically appropriately when something really big comes along. Which unfortunately is the opposite of what happened in the pandemic and the last couple of years, where huge transgressions of a number of core ethics have taken place amongst all our mainstream institutions in one way or another. I have touched on this in previous videos, but may do more in the future. Next time, as part 2 of Ethics, Values and Principles, I'm going to look in some depth at what in my view is a disgraceful example of a number of breaches of ethics that took place in the UK Parliament at the beginning of last year, 2023. So look out for that. Thank you for listening. If you like the content, please spread the word, and the subscribe button if you would like notification of future videos. And bye-bye for now.